Welcome to episode 16 of the Rosenthal and Jeselnik Vanity Project.
RJVP.
They say all good things must come to an end, Anthony, but say it ain't so.
It's all right to cry. Crying gets the sad out of you. Raindrops from your eyes, washing all the mad out of you.
Improbably, we are back for one more go-around in the podcast studio, Anthony. You said it was kind of hard to recharge the batteries here after last week, but you're here.
Yeah, I wanted to quit 2 weeks ago, and you didn't let me, and now I'm back, and I regret it.
Stop.
It's the last episode. Now that I'm here, I'm happy to be here. Are we drinking champagne in the studio? No, that wouldn't be allowed, but I wanted to. This is the last one. It should be fun. We should let it all hang out.
Yeah, I mean, you had certain rules that you had to say. You put some rules down if we were going to do a last show.
I had some demands for a last show.
One of them, because it takes a long time to get here every week. You insisted that I be your driver today.
Yeah, that you come pick me up, take me here, and drive me home afterwards, which was fun.
Which I did,
Yeah.
and I'm off on vacation this week, so I've made multiple people upset with me showing up here today. My wife, of course, because now she has to watch our kids a little extra during my vacation, and my other podcast was not happy that I came in for this podcast, but not their podcast.
You do another podcast?
Yes,
When did that start?
I've mentioned it to you many times. We actually did one at the Super Bowl last week. That's why we weren't on the show, but we did do a best of show, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But we did my other podcast at the Super Bowl, watched the little Broncos and the Panthers taking them out. What a weird game that was, but what a cool week it was. I enjoyed San Francisco very much. I met up with some podcast listeners.
Oh yeah, how was that?
We did a meetup for my other podcast.
Like an official meetup. Like, how did you let people know to meet up?
We tweeted it out like a few days in advance, or the night before. We said where to meet up, and then we tweeted it out a couple times. And a lot of people came. I would guess maybe about 50 people.
And did you enjoy it? Like, I've gone on record, I do not like meeting with fans. I can meet them like one-on-one every now and again, but I don't. If there was a meetup where like people went there to meet me, it would be my worst nightmare. Especially if it's in a bar and everyone is drinking. I would not like it.
It was a little intense, and a friend of mine from high school, Kathleen, was there, and she kind of like just saw that it was intense initially, and immediately just started putting shots down my throat, basically.
Mhm.
And that was a good move by her. Just kind of loosened it up. It was fun. But I was surprised and pleasantly surprised that so many of most of the listeners listened to both podcasts, and they all wanted to hear about RJVP. They all wanted to hear about the Rosenthal and Jeselnik Vanity Project. RJVP.
Would you say that there were more people who were there were interested in RJVP than in the podcast you just started recently?
Well, I didn't start that recently. We've been doing that for 3 years, and
What's it called?
the Around the NFL podcast.
Okay.
And it changed names. Used to be Around the League. Inherently, they were going to be listeners of that podcast because they would have had to been following us on Twitter really for them to show up. But I was amazed. They at least to me, they didn't really want to talk about it. They wanted to talk about the Jeselnik podcast. They had theories about what last episode meant. They asked a lot of questions about Jeselnik. I was pleasantly surprised. You have an audience. These are the people that you're potentially giving up on that are going to be heartbroken, Anthony.
Of course I have an audience. I'm a television star. I'm a star of stage and screen, not podcasting. And the fact that RJVP doesn't have their own Twitter account is one of the many reasons that I'm leaving, that I'm getting away as far away as I can.
I'm sorry.
The National Football League.
We haven't.
No, I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at you to commiserate, Brandon. I'm not blaming you. That's not your job. I'm sure there's someone at the network.
Really, it probably would have been Brandon.
No, I would have had to go through somebody actually to get that
Yeah.
approved.
That's Brandon, our producer.
So
For
that would have been a
listeners.
problem.
The last time we introduced Brandon. Last time anyone introduces Brandon. What are you going to do after this? Seppuku?
Women's track and fields.
Seppuku. That was a joke for Gregg's wife.
No one gets that joke, other than the people at my wedding who you made fun of my wife's nationality. She grew up in Orange County, 1 to 8, but then a lot of time in Japan. She's Japanese.
Orange County, Japan.
Yeah,
They have one there too.
and you said that our marriage was really me during the speech. finishing off my fetish. Really.
Satisfying your fetish. Yes, that's the one part of the speech that I remember. I may have been drunk during that too, not just this podcast. Although I'm not drinking during this podcast. I would never drink and podcast at the same time.
It was a cool experience though. San Francisco was a great location for a Super Bowl. I would recommend doing it highly. It was very far. The game was very far away. That was annoying. How far away it was, but it was cool.
What time do you have to get to the game? Since you're kind of working it, what time you got to be there?
We got there, and this is later than usual. We got there at 11 for a 3:30 game. Oh. It's like there's nothing to do. There's really not that much to do for that whole time. Maybe 10:30 we got there.
Okay. Sounds fun. I heard the people of San Francisco did not like having the Super Bowl there. They were all kind of annoyed.
Yeah, they didn't seem to care that much, but that's why I kind of liked it. It was just part of the city. You were just hanging out in San Francisco for a week. And the Panthers were like the loosest team I've ever seen during a week. I guess it didn't really help. Maybe they were
too loose.
Maybe they were a little too confident. And the game was it was intriguing. It was tense. It was surprising. I don't know if it was a great game.
It was not.
People don't listen to us for our football analysis, though, so I don't know.
Oh, they do. That's all they listen to us for. Let's get into what was cut. That was Lil Wayne. What was cut last week? This is unprecedented. This is not since our first podcast have we had an episode where nothing was cut. Last week, I don't know if you heard the podcast. If you haven't heard last week's podcast, hit pause right now. Go download episode 15. Listen to it. If you had listened to it, listen to it again, because you're going to miss a lot of inside jokes, a lot of great stuff in last week's podcast. And I think the fact that we brought in Goodell to kind of help us curate the best of RJVP, I think really helped us out. The shadowy league figures couldn't really edit anything, couldn't mess with anything. A lot of offensive stuff, a lot of inside jokes, a lot of outside jokes in last week's podcast. I told my mom not to listen to it.
Really?
I made sure. I forgot to tell my brother not to listen to it. He called me and was upset.
He was upset. We did get a lot of people. Brandon was very upset. It says the best of our podcast, and I think it did choose all the best moments for our podcast over the last 15 weeks. And Brandon was very anxious about it. He didn't think it was going to work. The first couple of responses on Twitter were very negative. They were angry, and he's like, "Oh, the people are hammering you already." First of all, I didn't care. Second of all, I didn't think that would hold true, and it didn't. I got more responses for this podcast than any one I've ever done. I think people saw it as an experience. When they got through it or they listened to part of it, they had to share it.
You got more responses than any RJVP you've ever done? Or
any podcast.
Even the other one.
I think I got hundreds and hundreds of responses on this particular one.
You know what? Give the name of the other podcast you use so people who listen to this will maybe check that one out.
The Around the NFL podcast.
The Around the NFL podcast. Okay. Doesn't sound like it's for me. Doesn't sound like it's my speed. But people should check it out. Now that this podcast is going away, I don't mind the competition.
I support you. You always say that you're my best friend. And one of the reasons I often correct you and just say we're friends is I support you in your endeavors. I've watched basically every show that you've ever done. I've listened to you on various podcasts, maybe not every single one, but if you hosted a podcast for years, I would be aware of it. I would listen to it.
If I hosted a podcast for years, I wouldn't be on those TV shows that you watch. Do you understand? I've got things to do, guys. Again, I am slumming when I come here.
My favorite thing about last week's episode, though, was hearing the different experiences that people had with it. Like, I asked my mom about it, and she said, "Oh, that was really funny. I listened to about 15, 20 minutes of it." I was like, "Oh, you didn't get to did you skip ahead?" She's like, "Yeah, but she didn't know that there was a sweet spot in the middle." And then I asked my dad, and just totally normally, he just said, "Oh, yeah, I listened to the whole thing. It was funny." It's like, what? You did? That's amazing.
A lot of people said it was our best ever, and I believe that it was like your best ever. I've never listened to your other podcasts, but I believe that it was better than anything else you've ever done. For me, it was just like a walk in the park. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like a lazy Sunday.
Well, Goodell was very proud of it, and I do think it was some of his best work. That's why we don't have to take anything out of this week.
I mean, I'll just quote Goodell here. He called me up. He said, "Anthony, I just listened to episode 15. I am hyped," is what he kept saying. I am hyped.
It was almost, some people at the meetup, they really wanted to talk about it. They wanted to keep the Rosenthal and Jeselnik Vanity Project, RJVP. They wanted to keep it going. And one of the things I liked is they had different theories about what last week's episode meant.
What were the theories? Is it like an X-Files situation? What's going on?
Whether it meant the show was over or not, whether I don't really remember. It was a bit of a hazy night, but people had different ideas over, okay, what did that mean? Were we giving a big, middle finger to the NFL? My friends, my coworkers, some of whom listen. Mark Sessler, for instance, he listens to our podcast.
Shout out to Sessler.
The other guys don't as much, but when they heard about it, they were like, "Oh, this is you're really gonna get in trouble this time." Jeselnik is not going to be good for your career at some point, because they was like, when they hear this, they are going to take it down, and you've gone a step too far. But people love it.
It went up Wednesday night, and I'll say so. We'll move on to headlines. It went up Wednesday night, and I was excited about it. I was like, let's see what happens. I know Brandon was worried. Brandon was a little scared, like a little girl.
About his job and
about his
paying
job
the
No, I
rent.
wasn't worried about the job at all. I thought it would be fine. It was just like people are going to listen to 47 minutes of pretty much a same.
of the best of
I know. but
Rosenthal and Jeselnik Vanity Project.
Come on.
RJVP. I looked it up when it first came up. I saw a couple tweets. I went and looked at it, saw it was online, and then 5 minutes later, it was not on iTunes. And I thought the league took it down immediately, and I was furious. I was furious about like an hour. I was texting Gregg, and then they put it back up, and all was right with the world. Let's get the headlines.
But I thank you for putting me right back, Lord. Into you, Father, I would give my life back for it. That knife, that sword, that gun, that war. Make the so-called soldiers just run like gore. Yeah, Frank, that is from San Francisco. And I got more banana clips than chimpanzees.
That was Lil Wayne. Thumb on her nose at the song length requirements the NFL has given out. Why not? It's the last episode. We can do whatever we want. What are they going to do? Fire me?
That's Sports Center by Lil Wayne. Oh, one of the reasons I love Lil Wayne. Big sports fan. Who else is talking about Frank Gore? The inconvenient truth. We're coming from the San Francisco Super Bowl. One of the greatest all-time 49ers. Shout out to Frank Gore.
Love Gore.
He's my guy.
It's Gore.
If that's going to be our last Lil Wayne clip, we're only allowed 2, commercial songs each week.
Supposedly, we'll get into that later on. I'll get another one of my beefs with the NFL and their so-called rules after this. What's our first headline, Gregg?
Let's talk about Peyton Manning.
Let's talk about Peyton Manning. I'm not happy.
He won the second Super Bowl of his career, and I was afraid that he was going to retire right after the game, which would have complicated my week.
Okay.
What were you going to say?
I was like, why were you afraid of that?
Because I would have worked 2 extra. Like, we finished working. We did another podcast at 1:30 in the morning after the Super Bowl. It might have been 3 in the morning if he had retired, because it just would have been a lot to get to.
You guys weren't prepared for that?
We were somewhat prepared, but you still have to write off of what happens. We're not pre-writing, 50 articles or whatever goes on.
Sure.
So he didn't retire. But he did win his second Super Bowl. Almost a little apologetic about it, like he's enjoying the moment, but he knows he's no longer what he once was. He obviously didn't play well, and Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware and Malik Jackson, those guys basically won the Super Bowl for him on his own. But the thing that was most noticeable about Manning was sort of how he celebrated right after the Super Bowl ends. The first person you see, he's not hugging his wife, he's not kissing his little kids, he's not hugging his coach or teammates. He gets a big, fat kiss from Papa John.
Peyton kisses Papa John. Why would you do that? You don't have to kiss Papa John. I know he's got to deal with Papa John. He's already done the commercials. You've already sold all your dignity and thrown in Joe Montana's dignity to Papa John. You just won the Super Bowl. You can do anything you want. You can go out to the 50-yard line, bend over, and let the Noid. Edited because I felt like it. I can't believe Peyton didn't retire on the spot. He couldn't have been lamer. He could not have been more lame at the end of that game. When Jerome Bettis won Super Bowl 40 10 years ago to the day in Detroit, he went out there and he said, "This is it. I'm giving it up. I won the Super Bowl. I am retiring," and it was awesome.
Yeah, the bus.
The best thing he could have done.
Bus's last stop. Clever play on words there.
When Ray
was
Lewis
in Detroit. That's how he said.
Exactly. I mean, that's where he's from. He went home to Detroit to retire. When Ray Lewis retired after the Ravens won, it was the best way you could retire. Peyton blew it. Not only by not retiring, but by kissing Papa John, who he did not have to kiss, and then claiming he was going to go home and drink a bunch of Budweiser. No, you're not. No, you're not going to do that. And why would you say it? It was lame. It's not even Disney World. I'm going to drink Budweiser and not retiring. Weak sauce.
I have a lot of things to say about
Shout out to the Noid, by the way.
Yeah, well, so how many people listening know what the Noid is? I bet Brandon does not know what the Noid is.
Not a clue.
You got to avoid the Noid. I'll tell you that right now. You got to avoid the Noid.
You have to be about 35 or older to know what the Noid is.
Noid ruins pizzas.
But it's a pizza reference.
It's Domino's pizza reference. There was once a guy whose last name was Noid, and he was so upset at Domino's for their Avoid the Noid campaign that he got a gun and he took people hostage at a Domino's pizza, and he requested 2 pizzas. No, maybe corporate headquarters wanted them to stop using
Is this
the Noid.
really what happens?
This is really
in
what
the
happens.
Noid commercials?
Not in the commercials. In real life, he took people hostage and then demanded 2 pizzas, and they stopped using the Noid, ate one of the pizzas, and then gave up and went to jail.
Hashtag avoid the Noid.
So Peyton could have done the dirty with the Noid.
Well,
Which would have been, I'm sure, in violation of his contract. But why not? You just won the Super Bowl. Do whatever you want. Like, it's our last show. This is my Super Bowl. I can do anything. I can fly.
well, he owns it turns out Peyton Manning owns a couple Budweiser distilleries or something.
So he
like
owns
that.
them. You don't have to ruin your moment.
But no one even knew that because now you could look at this where you and Peyton Manning have something in common.
I like where you're going.
That he was thumbing his nose at the NFL because you're not allowed to have an alcohol sponsorship if you're a player in the NFL.
Yeah, not if you're a player. Only if you are a team or the league itself. Otherwise, no.
Yeah. So
or if you're a fan of the game and you want to drink as much beer as you
people
want.
were saying, that mention was worth millions and millions. Imagine how much they're making off of us talking about it right now.
Oh my God, billions of dollars.
He also didn't show up to the team party. It was reported by Yahoo in a couple places.
This I support. I don't know if I bet a lot of players did not show up to this party.
Right.
The team party for the world champion Denver Broncos was at the Santa Clara Marriott, which I'm sure is not a great hotel, much less the best Marriott in the world. Why can't you guys get a better place? Why can't you just party in the parking lot and get it on? Why do you have to go to the Marriott? I think Peyton was probably getting a room somewhere with Papa John.
Whoa.
His wife and Papa John and the Noid.
Getting the Noid in there is going to make it a little crazy. I thought people picking on Manning for his post-game party activities, it's a little much.
No, I'm not picking on him. I
know
it's
you're
cool
not.
He didn't go. I think it's cool he didn't go.
It's weird the PR guy had to answer to it at all. I have read, I've seen this over if Tom Brady, when they win the Super Bowl, he'll kind of be at the team party. He'll go through for a little bit, but then he'll have sort of a off room where it's like the separate Tom Brady party where where the close friends of Tom Brady come in.
Yeah, but you got to stop in. You know what I mean? Like I've had rap parties for shows I've done, movies I've done, and
that's
afterwards
like winning the Super Bowl.
You drop in, you say hello to the little people, to the crew. You know what I mean? Like I would have gone in and been like, "Hey, what's up, Brandon?" and then taken off and then gotten out of there. But you got to do that. But I think it's on the Broncos for not having it at a better place. If they had it at a Budweiser brewery that served Papa John's, then Peyton would have been there for sure.
Well, Santa Clara is very far from anywhere, so maybe it was just a little tough logistically. I don't know what the thought there was. Maybe they didn't expect to win the Super Bowl. They were like, this Panthers team is great. They didn't have anything planned. They just threw it together last minute, like the ATN meetup that we did, the ATN NFL meetup. The one other thing that I noticed post game with the Mannings was Eli Manning and his reaction to the 2-point conversion or the touchdown that the Broncos scored that basically put the game away for Denver. Of course, Von Miller gets the strip sack. C.J. Anderson scores a touchdown. At that moment, that's when I put my head down and I started writing. You're always kind of waiting for that moment when the game is truly over and you can stop paying attention and just start working.
You don't have to tell me, brother.
And Eli Manning was, they showed the Manning box when that moment happened, and all the Mannings are going crazy. Olivia is hugging some sort of grandson or nephew. That's his mom, and Archie's happy, and everyone's happy. And Eli's just sitting there stone-faced.
Mm-hmm. No, I saw this, and not even stone. He looks confused. He looks a little upset. He looks like he just ate a piece of Papa John's pizza. I saw that at first, and I thought this is ridiculous because I've seen Peyton's reaction when Eli won those 2 Super Bowls against the Patriots, which made them great. And Peyton would be like a cheerleader. He would be like a little girl jumping up and down, so excited. Clearly, afterwards, they would interview him, and he was clearly so happy for his brother. I thought maybe Eli's being weak sauce.
Whoa.
Being weak sauce here. But then I thought about the way that I watch Steeler games. And I'm on emotional lockdown until the W is in the books. That I kind of believe Eli's excuse, and I believe that they are close and they do love each other and root for each other. And I think that Eli was just an emotional lockdown until that game was over.
What was his excuse? Was basically he was thinking about what they needed to do next.
Yeah, he was like, are they going to go for 2? This game's not over. They could still come back. He's on emotional lockdown, which I understand and I respect. I respect Eli more than I respect Peyton.
Well, if you were going to be like one of the Manning brothers, it would definitely be Eli. I mean, he's on emotional lockdown all the time, which is true of you too.
Sure, unless he's out drunk with his wife in public.
That's fair. I saw Eli Manning and his wife a few times during the week. NFL honors they were at. Eli Manning, sneaky, better looking than you would think. Tall, tall guy. I think he's getting better with age.
I mean, if you
is what I'm
compare
gonna
him
say.
to Peyton, of course he's better looking.
You said the other show Peyton should. Yeah.
I think he's better looking than Tom Brady, Peyton, but he's not a good-looking guy. Peyton's not a handsome man, but if you put him next to Tom Brady, he's an Adonis.
This is reminding me of the other night. I texted you about the 15th episode of the Rosenthal and Jeselnik Vanity Project, RJVP, and which now I'm beginning to think maybe that should have been the finale. That really was our mission statement. But I'm glad we're back here now, and I was happy with the response.
Thanks a lot.
I was happy with the response. And I texted you, how funny, how people liked it, and I was like, you did it again, Jeselnik. Do you remember what you responded?
No, but I'm sure it was great. What did I say?
You said something about I've been carrying you since 2008.
No, 98.
No,
2008.
It said 2008. You screwed up the joke.
I definitely screwed up the joke.
Well, 2008 is about when your career really started to take off, or so maybe. So you said you carried me, and I had a perfect response back, and for some reason. I felt too nice, and I don't know. I hesitated to send it back, and then I really regretted not sending it. And now I feel like I should just say it. And my response was going to be like, the Rosenthals make you human. That was going to be my response. We offer a lot to you. You know what I mean?
That's kind of true. I'm glad instead of sending me a pithy text that you wasted 5 minutes of our final podcast to talk about it. You know what? This Peyton Manning thing is all anyone's talking about. Let's reach out. Let's take a phone call. Let's take the Brandon. Let's take the fifth caller at 888-555-55666.
Telescope.
Fifth caller, you're on the air with RJVP. What do you think about this whole Peyton Manning situation?
Anthony, do you have the telescope I made you?
Oh, you know I do. You know I do. What are the chances that my goddaughter Ellis would be the fifth caller to RJVP? Ellis, of course I have the telescope you got me. It's beautiful. I keep it as a centerpiece on my dining room table. What do you think about this Peyton Manning situation? You think he should have kissed Papa John's? You think he should have gone and celebrate with his teammates? What do you think?
I want to hear my dada.
Your dad is right here.
I'm right here, Alice, and it's great to hear you on the show. I know you had some big opinions on the Peyton Manning and the Broncos. You were excited for the Super Bowl.
I watched the live TV.
Oh, you bet you did. This is, a little aggressive, a little more aggressive than I hear callers to be, but I like what you're saying. I like where your head's at, Ellis. What do you think about next year with the Super Bowl? You think the Broncos are going to come back? You think Peyton's going to come back?
Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what?
What?
Next January, I invited you to Walker's birthday.
Oh.
Walker's birthday. Thank you. I could not be there. I was not invited by your father. But thank you for doing that, and thank you for being our fifth caller. We'll talk to you soon, Ellis. All right? I love you.
Love you, Alice.
Bye.
Bye. Good insight.
Yeah, that was great.
Indirect
really
shot
knows
by her
stuff.
about you not showing up to.
A little upset I didn't show up at her little brother's birthday. But I appreciate that she pays attention to the game and kind of knows what's up. And surprised that she knows how to use the phone to call us. And I think, Brandon, great job on picking her as the fifth caller. It could have been anybody.
Hey, listen, I'm trying to step it up. It's the final episode, doing what I can.
I know. That was great.
The internal biological mental mechanism, let me know the exact time to pass it. Ace, eat a hot dog, get mustard on your face. 42nd Street is the place.
That was your old Droog. That was 40 Deuce, his new one. That, of course, we've played a lot of your old Droog throughout the season because the league mandated we could only use 2 hip-hop songs of our choosing for a short amount of time, and then we could use anything that gave us a permission. And your old Droog and I are boys. We are friends, as we say in the biz, and he let us do anything we want. Found out recently that the league thought that we were just thumbing our nose at them and using as much hip-hop as we wanted. Didn't understand the connection between me and your old Droog. So we could have been playing Lil Wayne all the way through, but I'm glad we didn't.
I'm glad we didn't, because your old Droog, I'm a new fan. I bought his album. It's fantastic.
It's great. It's great stuff.
Cam Newton was obviously in the news for what was just about the worst game of his season. He had a few in September that weren't great. I would say his teammates were the bigger reason why they lost that Super Bowl, but he didn't have a good game, and he didn't have a good post-game. He left his press conference just about 3 minutes into it, was very, downcast, didn't really answer questions, people giving him grief for that. He, again, talked to the media on Tuesday, tried to explain a couple things. Why he didn't necessarily go all out to get that fumble in the late fourth quarter. And then he was just saying that he was proud to be a sore loser, that you don't want someone that can take losing well. When you take losing well, you are a loser. So he's proud that he was a sore loser.
Now, I'll say a couple things about this. First of all, him not diving for that fumble, I believe him and his teammates when they say that he was just waiting to see where it squirted out. He wanted to be in position to get that fumble. I kind of appreciate that sort of football mind. And I also, about him, his press conference, of course you want a leader to stand up there and take the tough questions. But when you have a guy like Cam who's so dynamic, if you can't handle Cam at his worst, you don't deserve him at his best. To get that guy who's dancing and dabbing throughout the season, you're going to get a guy who's a sore loser at the end of the year. I think that's okay. But I do think, Greg, that his teammates aren't down. I don't think his teammates support him 100%. I think in the locker room, people are a little upset at the way he's kind of carried himself all year. And then to have that kind of game in the Super Bowl, it's kind of like a Donovan McNabb situation.
Ooh,
you know,
you're getting with your low voice and looking at me very serious. There's a little bit of that, especially our intrepid reporter Connor Orr, who covered the Panthers for us.
Shout out to Connor.
Last week. He thought that, the teammates, certainly the offensive teammates, are totally down with him. I think there's probably some – it's natural. You got 50 guys. Not everyone's going to love each other. I mean, people supposedly did not like Dan Marino. They did not like Joe Montana necessarily. I mean, when you're a big leader and you're the main guy and you're getting all the attention – they're maybe not going to be down. So maybe they weren't down with how he handled the end. I think you can say that he didn't handle that situation great and say that it wasn't really his fault to lose the Super Bowl and that it's not a big deal. And those all can be true. It just it wasn't that true. I don't think it means you're necessarily like piling on him to say it wasn't a great moment for him. Marshall Faulk said on our air basically, he handled his first Super Bowl loss terribly, and he thought he learned from it, that he grew up a little bit after the fact because he realized he didn't handle it very well.
Sure, but I think, whenever anyone's mad after a game, you're mad because you lost the game. You can have all these different excuses of what you're really upset about, but they're mad. If they had won that game, no one's mad at Cam.
Bill Belichick is monosyllabic. He is so annoyed. Everything in his life has been drained away, and he wants everyone to die. And he makes it very clear. And he's, the greatest coach of his era, if not ever.
I would say Mike Tomlin, but I kind of agree with you. I think a lot of the piling on of Cam has to do with, Brandon, give me an echo. Racism. You know what? Let's take another caller. Let's take the 10th caller this time to 888-555-55666.
Is this Anthony?
Oh, 10th caller. Is this Ellis again? What are the chances? Ellis, great to see you, my goddaughter. I love you. What do you think about Cam Newton? Are you pro or con?
Can you get me and Mommy a donut?
Would I get you and Mommy a donut? I would be happy to get you a baker's dozen.
Can you get us some ice cream?
Donuts and ice cream? I would be happy to.
So you're saying you want Anthony because Ellis, that I picked up Anthony and I brought him to work today. You're saying you want Anthony to come over tonight with the donut. It sounded like Emeka there listening. Would you like that, Ellis?
Yeah.
Maybe I will. I've got a show tonight. I've got to perform stand-up comedy. Ellis, what do you think about the puppets I got you for Christmas?
Come to our house whenever you want to.
Wait, you had a question for us, Ellis. Let's listen to the question, Anthony. You got to be a good host and do that.
Of course.
Can you come to my house, Anthony?
Your house? I would love to come to your house. I want to come all the time. I want to hang out with you as much as I can, but your parents keep us apart.
But Anthony, you can't hang out with me too long because Gaga and Grandpa are here.
Okay, your Gaga and Grandpa are there, so I can't hang out too long. I totally understand that. They're kind of like the Cam Newton of the household. You know what I mean? They show up in the big games. They're not always there in the Super Bowl. Is that what you're saying, Ellis?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So what did you think about Cam Newton, Ellis? About everything that happened after the Super Bowl with Cam Newton and him not talking to the media and everything?
Anthony, me and my dad, Gaga, Grandpa, and me had a pizza and a salad party.
You had a pizza and a salad party? Well, that sounds like the opposite of what Cam Newton did, and I think I understand exactly what you're saying, Ellis, and I love you for it. Thank you so much for being our 10th caller.
Bye, Ellis.
Bye.
God, Ellis, the 10th caller again. I mean, does she do anything but call in to radio shows and podcasts all day long? I love it. I love that she's a supporter of the show. And again, thank you everyone who called in, but she was the 10th. She gets to do it. Greg, what's our hot take of the week?
Well, I'm tempted to give the hot take of the week to Ellis for that analogy she used between picking up the donuts and Cam Newton's post-game reaction. But instead, I'm going to give it to Bill Romanowski, who sent a tweet that got some notice about Cam Newton right after the game, saying, "You will never last in the NFL with that attitude, and the world doesn't revolve around you, boy."
Unbelievable. First of all, you'll never last in the NFL. He will be a star. He was the MVP of the league. He will be around for quite some time, hopefully. Secondly, do not use the word boy when talking to anyone except your son. Even then, it's pretty disrespectful. But Bill Romanowski, a man who has famously dropped the N-word in the locker room to his teammates many a time, should never be calling anyone boy.
No, it's insane that anyone pays attention to what this guy's saying. He eventually deleted the tweet, and of all people to be saying, "Oh, here's the right and the wrong way to do things in the NFL." This is a guy who, he's been suspended. He's had all sorts of off-field problems. I don't even need to get into them. And it just proves what your point throughout the year that I think some criticism of Cam Newton is.
Hold on, before you say it, give us the echo. It's about what, Greg?
It's about
racism.
Racism.
That was the hot take of the week.
Order one with 2 espresso shots and it called red eye. Ain't no telling how many newspapers I read. Buy several papers and I read them all twice so I can recite them to you backwards, son, I'm nice.
That was Gerald Droog.
When I brought up the idea of possibly bringing Ellis into the studio just as an analyst this week, didn't work with her nap schedule and everything. But when I offered that, my mom wanted to come in to watch us just to see us dancing in between each segment, which she's heard about.
I think it's the first time we've mentioned that we do a little dance during these songs because we bring the fire. We got to dance. No one will ever see. No one will ever see it, no matter what Brandon tries.
I have a real question though. Are we going to be able to get me unblocked before you leave for the
Oh, yeah. You know what? If you pull up a laptop and Brandon and I blocked him on Twitter because he put a clip of me dancing up, and I couldn't have that.
Can I do that later?
Yes, I will unblock you. I just keep forgetting, but I would happily unblock you.
Can I put up a clip of you guys dancing?
No.
Okay.
No, you cannot. I have a fan club that would jump all over that, and I cannot have that out in the world.
Nobody dancing in Cleveland this week. Johnny Manziel. This story just keeps getting worse and worse. I don't even know where to start. His father made these quotes that said if they can't help turn Johnny Manziel's life around, he's worried that Johnny's going to be dead soon, basically, that those are the sort of problems that he has, that he's suicidal. I, first of all, wasn't sure who they are. It's Johnny Manziel's father. You would think he would be part of that trying to help Johnny Manziel turn his life around. There was a report from our Michael Silver that when the Browns said he was in the concussion protocol, he was actually just drunk and showed up to practice drunk. Hugh Jackson, the coach of the team, basically says the Browns want to help. It's more than football. He wants to save Johnny Manziel. They want to help Johnny Manziel turn his life around, but it's dark times in Johnny Manziel town right now.
Yeah, this is a tough one. And if this is true, it's true that he showed up to practice drunk and they blamed it on concussion, it's 100% on the Browns. Because Brett Favre should have practiced like every week drunk, and people thought it was great. That was like a funny story they told after he retired. Hockey players do this every single day, all right? Is it not true that I'm drunk right now? No, it is not. That was a test. But the Browns cover it up. That's reprehensible. If Manziel killed his girlfriend and himself like he had been quoted to do, edited because it's our last show. And I think it's hilarious, though, if there's a funny part of this at all. This man needs help. But I like that the serious part is that he threatened to kill his girlfriend and himself. Because if he just threatened to kill his girlfriend, edited because I don't want you guys to laugh that much. This girl sounds awful. Like, it almost sounds like if he didn't have the girlfriend, he wouldn't have any of these problems. She sounds like a terrible person. She sounds like she sucks. And I think it's funny that the part that he was like, they're like, oh, you're going to kill your girlfriend? Edited because we balled too hard. You know what? Let's find out what the people think. I feel like Greg wasn't really into my reaction to that.
No, I was into it. I just knew it would all be cut.
You seemed a little... Really? Probably.
You don't think so? I also know... Well, there was a report that the Browns way back in the day wanted him to break up with the girl, as if
Of course, we talked about it.
doesn't feel like a positive thing to be, in this sort of situation, domestic violence, whatnot, like blaming, the victim, blaming the baby.
I don't know. I mean, Manziel is wrong to have struck her to do anything, but she sounds like bad news. She sounds terrible, and no one has said anything positive about this woman ever. Let's take a caller. Let's take the 100th caller, 888-555-55666.
Anthony.
Hello, 100th caller. What do you think about this Johnny Manziel situation? Has he gone too far? Have the Browns dropped the ball?
What did they want to say again?
Ellis, what do you have to tell us?
Uh,
I know you're speechless. I think a lot of people are when they hear about something like this. It's tough. The league is a tough place to play, much like you play every day in your backyard with the toys that I bought you, right? What do you think of the puppets that I got you for Christmas? Have you been using those? Have you been playing with them?
they're in my toy box.
They're in your toy box. Well, that's a great place to have them. Do you use the TP that I've gotten you? Have you been hanging out in the TP?
How do you speak?
What do you want to say about Johnny Manziel and football, Alice? Do you like football? Is it your favorite sport?
I think it's go pee-pee.
You know what? You go ahead and go pee-pee. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being the 100th caller. I know you had to wait on hold for a little while, but we really appreciate it. You go ahead and use the bathroom as much as you want. I don't mind.
Bye, sweetie. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
That was great. 100th caller, Ellis. What are the chances, Brandon, that she'd be calling number 5, calling number 10, and calling number 100?
I don't know what the actual chances are, but I know that it's very improbable.
You know what? I see the phone lines are still lighting up. Just get rid of all those people. We're not going to take any more calls. But again, Ellis, Gregg, you've raised a great goddaughter for me, which is pretty much how I think of her. Let's take our next headline. That was Roger Goodell playing a sad song, playing a violin, a tiny violin, for how sad he is that RJVP is going away. This is our last episode. I picture like me listening to that song while I look at your corpse, Gregg.
Oh,
Taking care of your family.
why would I be dead?
Because the show's dead. You have no reason to live anymore.
This really came up in conversation on Monday night. I was at my friend Evan's house, who you know Evan, in San Francisco, and I mentioned how you're the Godfather, and they were like, yeah, but if you guys die, like Anthony wouldn't take care of the kids, would he? We'd help. Like they were trying to encroach on. They're like, they figured their parents or they could help take care of the kids. And I was like, actually, you'd be surprised. I think Anthony, I don't know if he'd be there all day every day, but I think he'd find a way to take care of them.
Oh, I would be there to take care of them at least once a week if you guys died. I would look into it. One of my friends, my writing partner on this show I'm working on, is godfather to a couple of different kids, and one of them, he signed paperwork that if something happens to the parents, like he is there, he's in charge, which you guys have not had me do. But I would take anyone to court. I would take them to the blood bank, Senator, if anyone tried to take those kids away from me once you guys die.
Yeah, no, I think it's assumed. Maybe we'll have to put it, in writing one day. That Anthony, you can take care of them. You can.
I would be great. I've got the money to do it. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying.
I can handle this.
So halfway through,
put it on my back. Put it on my back like a crucifix.
Well, we hope this doesn't happen. You sound a little too excited about the concept of Emeka and I both dying together.
Even if it's not together, even if it's like separately, you know what I mean? Like, then I would still be on board.
So if I died, you just move into the house, perhaps.
Oh, at least nearby. Edited to keep your interest. Another sad song. That was Roger Goodell when he tried to score the Incredible Hulk TV show. When the Hulk was kind of walking away, hitchhiking, Goodell gave it a shot, and it got rejected. That's why he's now the commish as opposed to scoring television shows from the 70s and 80s. But it was a good song, and again appropriate that Brandon would choose that since it's their last show, and it's a sad time.
A little bit of a bummer, and I think when I think of Coldplay songs, they're a little bit of a bummer. They
wrote them?
That they exist at all. It's melancholy.
Yes.
There's some hope normally, but some of them are just sad. Sad love songs. They were the NFL's halftime show. A little underwhelming for a lot of people. Basically, I didn't really, I didn't really pay attention. Did you watch it?
I didn't. I watched the whole game, but at halftime I walk away. Like I went and took a walk
Mm.
with a friend of mine, and just like got out of the house for a little bit. And I was at a Super Bowl party, so I got out and walked around, and then came back right as it was ending. I did not care about any of it.
I do that. I do a similar routine. I'm at the game each year, and it's an intense first half. Maybe we're just finishing up work for 5 minutes right after the half ends, and then I go take a walk, which I always feel a little bit like a jerk doing. I don't feel like everyone else gets really excited, and they start going outside to get a better seat to watch the halftime show. But I usually just take a walk, kind of collect my thoughts, get some exercise, think about the game. But people were not excited about the Coldplay portion of this so much. They were excited when Beyonce and Bruno Mars were on.
Yeah, Beyonce and Bruno Mars are made for the Super Bowl. Coldplay should never be allowed anywhere near it. Like, put them on at like the pregame. You know what I mean? If someone died who played football, and you want to do like an in memoriam segment, then you get Coldplay to play over that. But you don't want them at halftime. Like, do they even play songs that would pump you up or make you excited?
I mean, they played they played their songs that would be most likely to do that. I didn't recognize a couple of them. Yeah, I know you were upset. You saw some negative reaction to Beyonce.
Yeah, I didn't watch Beyonce. I'm a Beyonce fan in general. Like, I don't know her music. I don't listen to that kind of music. But I like her, and I like that she uses it as a platform to talk about Black Lives Matter and to kind of do like the Black Panther kind of thing, because it points out. Give me the echo, Brandon. Racism. That when people get upset about it, they are showing their true colors. Rudy Giuliani saying that it's like, oh, middle America watches this. You know what's in the middle of America? St. Louis. You know what's in the middle of America? Missouri. You know what's in the middle of America? Ferguson.
Ooh.
They appreciate that. They want to see it. She's a black artist doing black artist things in the Super Bowl. That's awesome. I think it's great, and anyone who's against it sucks. Even though I've never bought a Beyonce song or could name one of them, I think she's awesome, and I hope the NFL does more stuff like this, where they let people do political statements as opposed to Coldplay. That was Roger Goodell playing multiple instruments at the same time, hands and feet. You would think it's hard to run a bow across strings of a violin or a cello with your feet, and it is. It's almost impossible. It's only been done by one man, and that man is Roger the God Goodell.
LeSean McCoy in the news this week, not for a reason that he'd want to be. Got into
You don't know that.
a fight in a bar, and it being 2016, it got caught on phones, on video, and it turns out the people that he's alleged to be in a fight with, that he, it's not confirmed that he was there, that they were plainclothes cops, undercover cops, basically. And there is some reporting that he might, arrest warrant might come, and it just got me thinking a little bit about any fight situations that maybe Anthony Jeselnik's ever been in.
I love this story. He took out 2 off-duty cops in a bar brawl. The quote from the cops are, "They got up." That's what they said. I know we're gonna bleep it, but that's what they said. That was their direct quote. So he did some damage. And that's why you never get into a bar fight in Philly. 9 out of 10 bar goers are plainclothes police. Do you remember bar fights in New Orleans? Like, we never got into fights in New Orleans. Did you get knocked out in New Orleans?
I never was knocked out.
You were carrying home someone who got knocked out.
You
got arrested.
I did spend a night in Orleans Parish prison. I don't know if I should be telling this story, but there was it
was noble. It wasn't a bad cause.
No,
there was a fraternity fight.
It was a fracas.
You were helping a friend who got knocked out.
I was walking a block and a half away from where there had been a fight at that point, with Greg Safinski over my shoulder. A bigger guy, not a big guy, but he ended up joining the
bigger than you.
Much bigger than me. And we're walking, just kind of stumbling. All of a sudden, I hear a voice behind me, and it's just like, chick, chick. Where do you think you're going? And it was like the cops, and they just put us in the car. And the worst thing was, then they went back to where this fight was, and they were just like, all right, pick 3 of them just to even it out, because it was me, Safinski, and our friend Pete Gardner.
Yeah.
And they were just like, they had to pick 3 of those guys. Like, it really is terrible to be those 3
sure.
guys who just had to take the bullet and go to jail to make it even.
I didn't know you had to do that. I don't know they did like a.
I mean, I didn't have to do it. I didn't pick. It was they asked that group. They asked that group basically, hey, send 3 of your guys.
Okay. That's right. And then Safinski got to go home because he was concussed.
Something like that.
Yeah, you and Pete had to go to jail. I spent a couple nights in jail in New Orleans, non-consecutive, for different things. Never a fight though, but I always loved bar fights in New Orleans because people would start them all the time. People were drinking until all hours. There'd be 2 guys from out of town bump into each other, start a fight. Every single bouncer in the bar would love it. They would jump over the bar, beat the hell out of both guys. Then both guys would go to jail, and the cops would be vicious to them the whole time they were in jail.
Yeah.
Because they loved these bouncers so much. Like, cops would drink for free in all of these bars, so they would do anything that the bouncers and bartenders wanted. It was great. Do you remember our friend Steve Mercado, who got arrested outside of the bar he worked at with a bunch of friends, and the next day they told him, and they were like, the cops work for us who sent you to jail. All you had to say was, I work here. And he would have been fine, but he spent 12 hours in prison.
I mean, there were too many fights in New Orleans in general. Plus, you're in college and you can just stay out all late. I mean, I was never, shockingly, never in the middle of any of these. But it was always annoying when someone you knew or vaguely knew would be involved. Because I think you were there. Something you were of the same mind. You would kind of have to be there. You would maybe even possibly get a little more in the middle of it. But you'd have to be there and kind of watch it, but also make sure, at least from my perspective, that I'm staying way on the outskirts and I do not get involved whatsoever.
Yeah, I was a guy that everybody wanted to fight, but I avoided fights like the plague in college. But people always wanted to beat me up because of my mouth. And I was taller than you. Like, you were a guy that people didn't really pick on.
No.
But I definitely inspired anger.
Yeah.
And several other.
Whereas now now I'm huge and people just want to take me out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I almost punched you right now, just while we're talking about it. Another sad one from the Goodell Symphony, the Goodell Symphony Orchestra. They are incredible, and I'm starting to get a little sad, a little melancholy. Maybe this isn't my last show, but it definitely is. Now, it's time for the NFL's favorite RJVP segment. Who's had sex? Oh, yeah. Aqib Talib, after claiming he was proud his children got to see him try to tear a man's head off with a vicious face mask penalty and falling during an NFL Network interview being watched by dozens of fans, turned to his wife and said the following: "You're looking gorgeous, baby. We're going to get it in tonight." And you know what that means? They most likely had sex later on that night if he didn't get too drunk.
Sit back and enjoy the ride. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Sit back and enjoy the ride.
That should have been longer. Let's take it to recommendation station. Greg, this is our last one. What are you going to recommend?
I'm going to recommend, anyone re-listen to all the Who's Had Sex segments, because that is Anthony Jeselnik's favorite.
My favorite thing to
It's
do.
his favorite thing that he's done on this entire show. No, I will. I'll make some recommendations. Mistress America. Have not recommended that on this show. Noah Baumbach's movie from a year ago, or from about 6 months ago, that kind of slipped under the radar. If you like Noah Baumbach at all, this is my favorite Noah Baumbach movie.
Really?
I love Noah Baumbach, first of all. I think he's kind of a genius. But I like it more than Francis Ha. I like it more than Greenberg, which is great. And it kind of just fell. I don't know why. It just slipped. Like, I was shocked that to me, it should have won Oscars. It was awesome.
It's been very divisive. People have either loved it or hated it. I enjoy Noah Baumbach. Not all of them, but I loved Francis Ha. I like a bunch of them. I need to see this.
You got to see
It's
it.
a good recommendation.
I
But
will
people
send a
hate it.
book too. I know people hate. That's insane. Like, if they thought, if you don't like Noah Baumbach, you think it's this sort of cloistered world, whatever. I get why he annoys some people. Like, he's almost trying to be a little annoying, but it's awesome. I couldn't recommend it higher. By the way, whoever sent the database of all of our recommendations out on Twitter, send it to me again, because I can't find that tweet, and people have been asking, and I was impressed that you did this. So send it back to me on Twitter, and you can add this one final book, Anna Karenina. And then, I know I'm going back to the classics, but I feel like someone needs to tell the kids, It's a page turner. People mention old Russian novels like they're the hardest thing to read. It is easy to read. It is a page turner. It's got everything you could possibly want in a book, maybe the greatest book of all time.
Anna Karenina Dostoevsky, correct?
Tolstoy.
Okay, Tolstoy.
It's the best.
That is a good one. I've not read it. I have several copies. It's one of my dad's favorite books. I've always meant to read it.
And get the Bashir and Volkansky translation. I'm even giving translations.
Is that the newest one?
That is, I believe it's probably the newest one, but it's the one to go with.
Because I have read Crime and Punishment, I have read War and Peace, but I have not read Anna Karenina. But I will check that out. I've got two. I've got a TV show and a comedy album. My TV show is American Crime Story: The People vs. O.J. Simpson on FX. It's only 2 episodes deep as of this podcast. It is incredible. It is unbelievable. I love it. I don't know if anyone has seen it. Brandon has seen it. Brandon's a fan. It's unbelievable. And we were both kids watching that. We didn't get the full story. Getting to see it now is incredible, and the performances are great. And the comedy album, my good friend Emily Heller, who was open for me on the road, has a comedy album out from Kill Rock Stars called Good for Her. It is an excellent album. She's a very funny person. You should check it out. I'm wearing a T-shirt right now that with her face on it. So check out that comedy album and check out that TV show. Check out that book and check out that movie. That was Recommendation Station for the final time. That was Brandon tuning a guitar. That was another sad one. I asked Brandon to pick sad music.
I know, so somber. I look at this as a celebration.
It should have been. Looking back now, I should have had him pick like peppy music. You know what I mean? Maybe play that one song over and over again. But this is okay. I bet we got a surprise coming. You always have a surprise for me. I bet there's something coming up.
Don't ruin it. Our listener of the week, GRC 7800. I know the show's ending for now. You got to come join me, listeners, and pressure Anthony and pressure the NFL to bring us back for a season 2 next season, something like that. But so you can still leave reviews is what I'm saying, because some people might find this in a couple months. A lot of the people that came up to me said, oh, yeah, it took me a while, but then I just cranked right through it. GRC 7800 says, simply the best. If you gave this podcast fewer than 5 stars, you must have your head censored for being accurate.
Touchdown. Airbud.
Ooh.
Episode 15, probably the best podcast I've heard. It combines all of the best of the previous episodes into a montage, which will be a first ballot entry into the Podcast Hall of Fame.
Touchdown. Airbud.
I feel like these guys are friends, best friends. Please, NFL, don't cancel the Rosenthal and Jeselnik Vanity Project. RJVP. Whatever Anthony wants, give it to him. If he wants Mr. Goodell to censor to keep Gregg's job, make it happen.
That ship has sailed.
Oh.
There are things they could have done, and they didn't do them, and now we're here where we are. And you can't turn back time. There's no time machine at the NFL Network. There's not a lot of things at the NFL Network. There's no Jeselnik at the NFL Network.
Another one that I like just said RJVP has helped define their life. They were looking for a voice, listening to this podcast. That was just insane.
That was Roger Goodell watching the movie The Godfather and just tooling around with some musical instruments. Pretty good stuff.
Ask Anthony
Ooh.
this week, where I appreciate everyone tweeting at us as Anthony looks at me like he regrets us not drinking champagne during this entire podcast. Because that's not what we're doing. One of our listeners asked about a great Mardi Gras story, and you didn't want to do that because your mom listens to the podcast, and all the Mardi Gras stories are just a little too much. So instead, how about a great New Orleans, night story from us at college? And that was from Maria DeOrio.
People have been asking, we mentioned the tattoos we got in college, and I'll tell this story very quickly, or as quickly as I can. I don't know how much you remember of this. This was
I remember
This was a Jeselnik-driven night. This was St. Patrick's Day, year 2000, St. Patrick's Day. The last thing I remember, it's like the middle of the afternoon. I'd gone to in New Orleans, they party for any reason, and I went to a St. Patrick's Day party where they're drinking green beer. It's like this big like block party. I came home and I found myself with one of those boxes of wine, but just the bag. And I was walking down the street. Yeah, Franzia. Walking down the street, drinking like white wine out of a bag. And it's the last thing I remember. And then I'm at Fat Harry's, this bar we would always go to. And I was like trying to make out with the girl who was my girlfriend at the time's friend. And everyone was like, Anthony, you have this girlfriend you really like. Get away from this other girl who was not attractive. Took me home. You and Paul McGoldrick took me back home, put me on the couch.
Yeah.
I passed out for 10 seconds, and then jumped up and said, let's get tattoos. And it was like 1 a.m. We called a tattoo place that said they would stay open for us in the French Quarter. We had Pete Yo, our friend who had not been drinking, drive us down to the French Quarter, and me, you, and Paul went in to get tattoos.
Yeah.
Instead of coordinating and being, let's go get the same thing, like something we would remember, I was looking around, and I couldn't pick out a tattoo. I was like, I can't even see anything. I'm too drunk. And I told you guys, I said, guys, I can't get a tattoo. I'm too drunk. And you said, we've already gotten ours. We've already sat down and gotten our tattoos. And I didn't even ask you what you had gotten. I was like, okay. And I was looking at like a giant book of angels. And you were like, Anthony, don't get an angel tattoo. I was like, okay, thanks. Turned around and saw this like dragon on the wall. And I was like, get that. And I was like, should I get it on my arm? And you guys are like, yes, get it on my arm.
I love how like this is the crystal clear part of your memory is our reaction to you. You can't remember anything else, but it must be our fault that you.
No, it's not your fault.
I think you were just like, this was sweet. I don't think Paul and I are helping you out.
No, I was like, is this cool? And you guys were like, yes, do it. Like, and we were all excited at the same time.
Yeah.
And if you get a tattoo or you get a piercing, there's an adrenaline that kicks in where you're just like, everything is great. I understand why people get addicted to them.
We were fired up going down too.
Yeah. So then I get this tattoo. You're not supposed to get them when you're drunk, but these people did not care, the tattoo artists. And the next morning I woke up and was like, oh yeah, and I had to like take off the bandage to see what I had gotten. Like that's how drunk I was. I found out that you guys, I got like a dragon shape, like a Japanese dragon kind of Mortal Kombat looking thing on my shoulder, which I have since covered up. I have since got a tattoo cover up, which you have seen.
Yeah.
Which I will not give away.
You've kind of just
to the audience.
accentuated it, essentially.
It's not a dragon anymore. It's something completely different. I got a real artist to take care of it for me.
Yeah, because this looked like a 16-year-old doing a Mortal Kombat imitation.
Exactly. It was like, at the time, I thought it was kind of cool, and then I saw other people had the exact same tattoo. I was like, this is lame. And then you got...
It looked like a seahorse is really what people would pick on it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big one, yours. Mine was small. I was not, all together at that moment, but there was still enough of me that was just like, I'm going to do something minimal damage. I got the symbol of a hurricane with a yin-yang inside of it, and that's on my back, like my shoulder blade, but it's very small.
Yeah, you got a really small thing on your back, which is like no one would ever care. If I had gotten that, I never would have covered it up. I would have been like, this is
no one ever even knows it exists. No one ever sees it.
And then our friend Paul got a shamrock. Paul McGoldrick got a shamrock, and then since what are the words he got put around it later on?
It was some
country lyrics. Yeah, who knows? But
yeah,
you'll never get yours covered.
The party never ends, but something never ends, but the party will live forever.
Something like that.
Something ridiculous. All I remember is that you were furious, especially with me, that I got a small one on my back, and you got this huge, and his is on his back too, although it's bigger, and you got this big one on your arm, and you were like, the next day you were saying like, what the heck, that basically, no one's ever gonna see mine, and you've got this monster thing on your bicep.
I thought we should have gone in together.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I wasn't mad about my tattoo. I like that we all went in as friends, but I was like, we should have gotten either the same thing or let's all get one on our back. I felt left out and upset, and that's one of the reasons I'm leaving the podcast today.
Well, so many people sent in, by the way, for Ask Anthony. So many that there was a bunch, including from Ben Waldroff, what it would take to keep the show going.
Nothing. I mean, they could have kept going if the league had treated me differently or treated the podcast differently, but they blew it. And I'm supposed to have a meeting with someone from the network after this, but I don't think that's going to go well. I think I'm going to take him to the woodshed.
Oh, please. And I disagree. I think people can do something to keep it going. I think if people listening and the buzz starts building and Anthony he's away from the podcast and then the next season starts rolling around.
Now, even taking a week off, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. That taking 2 weeks off is going to make it doubly so, and people cannot influence it.
Well, you're like Peyton Manning. You're emotional right after the season. You've put everything you had into this season of RJVP, but when the next season starts going around, and you're driving somewhere, and maybe you hear a few licks of 59 miles to Jacksonville, then the blood's gonna start flowing.
59 miles to Jacksonville, driving together between the lines, you and me on 995, 59 miles to Jacksonville.
That was Roger Goodell's edited to keep Gregg's job. A joke that will definitely not be cut. This is one of the last things I want to do. We don't have predictions this week, but I wanted to talk about the last Boy Scout. One of my favorite movies of all time, Bruce Willis, Damon Wayans, The Last Boy Scout. I watched it 1,000,000 times in college. Greg, you have never seen it.
I've never seen it all the way through. I've seen parts of it because you watched it, like you said, in college. So I would watch 20 minutes here or there. I definitely saw the most memorable scene at some point, but I never watched it all the way through. And this is something, even when we were talking about doing this podcast back in July, this was on your mind. You really wanted to revisit The Last Boy
Yes,
Scout.
I wanted to put it in present-day circumstances. Brandon, have you ever seen Last Boy Scout?
Nope.
Okay. Put it in present-day circumstances. Describe the plot to you as if it was real, like current-time players. I'll make it the Dallas Cowboys as opposed to the LA Stallions, which is the team in the movie. And you tell me what your job would be like that week if this happened. Okay. Let's start.
Okay.
Let's say Darren McFadden, the Cowboys' leading rusher last year, gets a call at halftime of a Monday Night Football game against the Cleveland Browns, telling him to win the game at any cost or else. Okay. McFadden takes PCP, puts a gun in his waistband, and takes the field for the second half. On the first carry of the half, McFadden shoots 3 Browns players, 1 in the knee, 2 in the head, scores, gets into the end zone, takes off his helmet, says, "Ain't life a b***," and then shoots himself in the head. Kills himself. What would your job be like that week? You said it was tough when Lynch retired during the game with 10 minutes left. What would that be like for you?
Yeah, that would be tough. We would definitely go breaking news on that.
Mm-hmm.
Darren McFadden kills 3 Browns and self.
Kills 2.
Kills 2 Browns
and 1 career.
and himself. That would be the headline because you have to fit it in like a certain amount of words.
Tell me this:
would get into the because it comes on your phone. You need to have a certain length to get it on your phone.
Would the Cowboys get the W for that game?
Well, it would raise a lot of questions. You would
Sure.
you would think you would think the game would stop right then, and it would just become a crime scene. I don't know how Fox, who carries NFC games, would fill those next couple hours. That would be interesting to watch. Like, would they go to, the Panthers-Jaguars game, or would they just go to James Brown and Terry Bradshaw offering analysis that, oh my God, Darren McFadden just killed 2 people and himself? I would think they would do the latter, and would really be asking a lot of Terry.
Okay, let's say a couple days later. Tony Romo's wife Candace is gunned down by hitmen.
What?
Tony Romo.
This happens in the movie, you're saying?
Yes.
The equivalent, because we
Yes.
don't want to suggest
This
that
is
that's
Damon.
actually-
This is Damon Wayans in the movie.
You're saying
Halle Berry is his girlfriend. So I'm saying Tony Romo plays the part of
Damon Wayans.
Damon Wayans, and Candace, his wife, plays Halle Berry.
Underrated talent, Damon Wayans.
Underrated talent, Halle Berry. Tony Romo's wife Candace is gunned down by hitman, and then Tony kills several of the hitmen in retaliation. What's your week like after that? What's your day like? Is that a big thing?
Yeah, that would feel like we were just. I mean, first of all, we would still be covering the McFadden thing nonstop.
Yeah, that would be going on.
Everyone would be doing that. It'd be very stressful also working at the NFL because this would be an uncomfortable story, I believe, for the league especially.
Sure.
Really, anyone covering it, it'd be tricky. You have to make sure you get everything right. People would, when they heard that story, people would obviously be unhappy for Mrs. Romo, but they would also be really upset about themselves because, oh my God, that it would just go to another level. Aaron Hernandez was hard enough. This would be something.
Would Romo get to play that Sunday?
Well, I think he would be allowed to if he wanted to. Would the NFL cancel games? I don't think so.
Okay, not yet.
People,
Let's keep going.
People talked up. I mean, everyone, when they think of Brett Favre, they think about how he played, the day or two after his dad died, or that day.
Best game of his life.
So, maybe Tony Romo.
But
Tony
Brett
Romo
Favre's
might
dad,
be celebrated.
Brett
for it.
Favre's dad wasn't killed by hitmen, and Brett Favre didn't have to kill those hitmen himself.
Well, plus he'd have a backup running back the next week. Joseph, that would be problematic.
The next day, Greg, after Tony Romo's wife dies and he kills some of the hitmen, the next day Tony Romo finds a tape recording of a conversation between Jerry Jones and Texas Senator Ted Cruz trying to get gambling legalized. Apparently, Candace, Tony Romo's wife, was trying to blackmail Jerry Jones, and that's why he had her killed. Okay, he finds this out. Right? Now, Ted Cruz wants too much money to legalize gambling. He wants $6 million. They're offering $3 million. He wants $6 million.
Seems low.
So Jerry Jones decides it's cheaper to have Ted Cruz killed by a sniper during a Cowboys game.
Again, these are the characters in the movie. You're making them the current day. people.
Everyone
It's a
has
little
seen this
confusing.
movie except for you and Brett.
Okay.
All right. During the game where they're going to assassinate Ted Cruz, Tony Romo, who's not playing, jumps on a horse on the sidelines, takes the game ball from the field of play, and throws it into the luxury box, hitting Ted Cruz square in the nose, just as the sniper, who's hidden by the lights, fires at Ted Cruz. Just stops Ted Cruz from getting killed, but breaks his nose. The sniper is then shot by police and falls into a helicopter blade, sending blood and viscera and body parts all over the crowd below. What's your week like then? What's your day like?
Well, have we I would have to call NFL media insider Ian Rappaport. Like, has he confirmed the conversations between Jerry Jones and the senator? Because that's a key part of the story, the whole gambling conversations.
It's not public knowledge yet.
I would need Ian to, Ian would have to confirm all of that. If he did, I think we would just shut down NFL.com. That would be it. We would
shut it down. It would be over. You call it the league.
That would be over. I just think it'd be too much truth to deal with, and we'd let other people, cover the league for us. Now, if you didn't confirm it, if it was just the Tony Romo shooting, I think we'd do a long form feature on how he saved the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, let me put the cherry on this Sunday. This is the last part. Jerry Jones escapes. All right, he gets out of the stadium after all this happens, but takes a suitcase he thinks is full of money, but actually contains a bomb, which he brings home and opens, killing the Cowboys owner in a massive explosion that you can see from the stadium. He blows himself up in a huge explosion. Now what happens? Now all the story comes out about Jerry Jones trying to bribe senators, trying to assassinate people. Tony Romo's name is cleared.
Well, that's great for Romo, but that's bad. Jerry Jones is a big supporter of the league. He's a big-time owner. Technically, he owns 1/32 of NFL.com. So if we hadn't shut down the league's website before, I think that's it.
Flags are at half-mast for Jerry Jones, even though he had all these people killed.
Yeah?
Even though he had Tony Romo's wife killed.
I feel like you could not keep the Cowboys in the Jones family. You couldn't just give it to Steven. Okay, it's Steven's. I think it becomes very complicated. And maybe you have to give the team to Mark Davis, Al Davis's son.
Ooh, I like that. Let's go to some bonus content. That is someone sitting on an accordion. That was the laziest sad song we could have possibly found. Maybe this gets cut for time. I'm going to read the email. People wonder why I'm not coming back to this podcast, why the NFL is happy that I would not be coming back. We definitely have our fans. People support this. People will continue to support, but the NFL has not been very supportive. And I'll read an email that I sent to Gregg to forward to his bosses. And then Gregg will tell you the parts that he edited, which caused me to like him less, even though he's my best friend. This is my email to Gregg. I sent this maybe, 4 weeks ago?
Yeah. Mid-January.
I'll be as brief and blunt as possible. Feel free to forward this to your boss or any of the higher-ups. We've been discussing a car service to take me to and from the podcast every Wednesday for the past month or so. And while I don't think anyone would consider me a diva, I am certainly talent. A car service might sound like a big perk for many people, but I have come to expect it on every job I have done for the past 5 years. I understand that this is a free podcast, but you cannot dangle a perk in front of me and then not follow through. The second I am told a car shouldn't be a problem, I expect a car. Not following through immediately is quite frankly with me. And I will continue to do this podcast as long as the NFL is gracious enough to have me, but I will not be with. I don't expect anyone to bend over backwards for me, but I absolutely expect the NFL employee in charge of travel to type my name, address, date, and time into the system and make my life 50% easier. I look forward to the league's response and expect you to print out this email and have it framed, for it is a treasure. Your best friend, Anthony Jeselnik. Now, what part did you edit out, Gregg? What did you take out before you sent it up?
Yeah, I regret that. I took out the with me and the I will not be with.
Yeah, the heart of the email.
I think you get your message across other than that, but I was looking out for you. When I told this story to Emeka, my wife, she said me editing out that email was almost like our friendship in a nutshell.
You trying to ruin it?
Me trying to, smooth things over just a little bit, keep things going,
And now where are we? We're doing the last show.
Well, it's better than us not doing the last 3 or 4 shows.
Not to me. Let's do predictions.
Stop my bread and you gone shit. Have you in the hospital needed? On the streets in the snow you'll see.
That was your old Droog. A fitting second to last song, a penultimate song before we end this podcast. No games. Let's do predictions, Greg. What do you predict is going to happen with RJVP?
Oh, well, how lucky that I get to. I predict that we're going to be back. Of course we're going to be back. You act all tough and you write these emails, and that's all true. And of course I'm on your side with this. It's ridiculous, some of the things that have gone on. But I think once you get away from the Rosenthal and Jeselnik Vanity Project, RJVP. Brandon, quicker than you on that one. You're getting slow. I think you're going to think about this. You're going to look back on it very fondly, and you're going to think, let's figure out a fun way to work together again at the NFL, and that we'll be back. And, it might be maybe next season. Maybe it'll be the whole offseason's off, but we'll be back. That's my prediction.
Well, I mean, I understand you would say that. There's no way.
I'm an optimistic, positive guy.
I'll say this. We will definitely work together again. I've enjoyed doing this, but getting me here for 16 episodes – I'll count all 16. Has been crazy that I've done all this. You're lucky that I've done any of these.
Maybe
plus 16 of them.
Maybe they could change things up in terms of the agreement of you being here and whatnot. Who knows?
At this point, they would have to bend over so hard for me, and they will never do that. They would never. Like we've talked about the idea of a TV show on the NFL Network. They would never allow that. They would never allow us to do what we would want to do. That won't happen. I'll say this: we will work together again. Maybe not RJVP. Maybe what I've called the junior vice president of the Jeselnik and Rosenthal Vanity Project. Maybe that could live somewhere else. Not here, but we'll see. But I think by the time next season rolls around, my life will be in a very different place. I'll have things I'll be working on that I will not be able to have the time for this, which is fine. But we will work together again. You're my best friend. But this is dead. This is dead as of about 3 minutes from now.
I refuse to believe any of that. Some of that was hurtful, and I think once your time in the sun, it's coming out even more, and you're busier and busier. That's even more when Jeselnik needs to have a little reality in his life, have a little more of the God kids, Ellis,
and I'll hang out
and Walker, and have a little more of this, because this is more real than the rest of your work life.
Touchdown, Airbud.
All right, Greg. You want to play one more song, Brandon? Brandon, what do you think about this ending?
I like it.
You like that it's ending?
Yeah, I mean,
No, Brandon was
said
sad
this
about
ending.
it.
What do you like about this ending? I thought this particular one was good, but the actual show, I don't like it.
You don't like that we're ending? You haven't enjoyed doing it? Has this helped your life?
I've enjoyed doing it.
You've enjoyed doing it? Has it helped
spiced up my life.
It has? Do people talk to you about it? Has it made you more employable or less employable?
I would say more employable.
Yeah. Look at the other,
because I know you.
Look at the other gigs he's gotten. He's doing men's and women's ping pong for CSUN?
Yeah.
A lot of extra gigs.
Yeah, pretty much.
Great, Greg. Great last joke. Before you want to play one more song? Go ahead, Brandon. Whatever you want this time.
Sit back and enjoy the ride. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Sit back and enjoy the ride.
No one can ever get sick of that song, no matter how much they try, and they've tried hard. Greg, before we leave, last part of the last show, tell me about my God kids. How are Ellis and Walker? How are your children?
They're good. I mean, I got home yesterday from 9 days away. That's the longest I've been away from both of them. The first time Emeka and I really spent any time away from both of them since Walker was born. And it was really cool. When I got back, Walker could not be more excited. I feel like the half hour after we got home and he realized Emeka and I had not just left him forever with his was the happiest hour of his entire life. So that was really cool. And Ellis was obviously very happy to see us, and we heard her early on the show, and she loves you. And I think that's one thing I want to point out before this all wraps up, that you joke around about this tough Anthony Jeselnik guy, but you're a great godfather. People out there should know you're a great godfather to these kids, and they love you. And I picked well choosing Jeselnik as my godfather.
You're a lucky man.
What's up, everybody? DJ Bucky here with Move the Sticks. Bucky, tell everybody what's on the latest Move the Sticks episode.
The 5 lessons we learned from the Denver Broncos in terms of how to build a championship team. Also, what are the deepest positions in the draft? Look down the middle. Those defensive tackles are nice.
Yeah, we've got you covered as we march towards the NFL draft. Move the Sticks. You can find us on iTunes, NFL.com/podcast, as well as YouTube.